I'd now like to welcome Richard and Konrad to the stage. Guess what? They're already there. Now, as I mentioned, they're two Newcastle locals and on home turf. Richard is one of Australia's best economists, in my humble opinion. He's one of the best journalists I know, even though he's not a journalist. He writes with such precision and such beauty that every journalist should look to emulate him. He is a brilliant public policy commentator, and he basically runs a team that is doing its best to change the world in ways that I thoroughly believe in, and I'm sure most of you do too. And Konrad Benjamin, he is the straight-talking founder of Punter's Politics. Now, I spent most of my life as a communicator, as a journalist, and I wish I had the cut-through that his commentary has. Bloody brilliant stuff, makes a lot of the journalism redundant, puts complex issues in plain everyday language about politics, economics and power, and really cuts through the bullshit. He's a former economics teacher turned political commentator, and these guys are going to explain how the gas industry is taking the piss and what we can do about it, and I'd like you all to thank them now.
Thanks so much, Stephen, and thanks everyone for coming in. And just, hey, take a look around. Standing crowd, on a Monday night here in Newcastle. You're not alone in thinking that Australia is getting taken for a ride. You're not alone in thinking that as one of the richest countries in the world, the third biggest fossil fuel exporting country in the world, Saudi Arabia 1, Russia 2, Australia 3. Third biggest fossil fuel exporter in the world, world's largest coal port just down the road down there. And I know everyone here, because, gas prices are really high and coal prices have been really high. I know you're all feeling really rich. No, because, like when the price of oil goes up, the Saudis get rich, right?
Yeah, where's my dividend?
Yeah, well, it's coming. You just ruined my punchline, mate, But think about it. Like in Saudi Arabia, the price of oil goes up, it's good for the Saudis. In Qatar, the price of gas goes up, it's good for the Qataris. In Australia, price of oil and gas has gone up. Oh, shit.
I can't turn on my heater or my AC.
Yeah, cost of living crisis. How can this be? And the answer is really simple. It's because in Australia, we don't tax this industry. It's foreign owned, and other people in the rest of the world are making a fortune out of Australia's fossil fuel exports, causing our climate change, and we're the ones going, gee, yeah, the air conditioning's a bit expensive. So that's why we're here tonight. Like, we're here, they're literally taking the piss, right? And they've got away with it for a long, long time. And that's one of the problems. It's like, but it's always been like that, Richard. It's like, well, fucking fix it then. Oh, no, you can't. Why not? Oh, it's been like that for ages. What about the Saudis? That's different. What about the Qataris? Oh, that's different. What about the Norwegians? Oh, that's different. Well, can we be different? Nah. Why not? Well, it's always been like that. Right, but it hasn't always been like that. It hasn't always been like that. So that's why we're here tonight. And again, it's great to see literally standing room only at an event. I know some of you snuck in. And welcome, by the way. Thank you. Thanks to those who bought a ticket. Thanks to those who are just so excited about this stuff they wanted to come. So that's a great problem for a think tank to have, is so many people wanting to come to an event like this. So that's why we're here. We're also here because, as Stephen said, Konrad's one of the best communicators around, talks to quite a different audience than we talk to at the Australia Institute, says it in a different way. And also, I think, Konrad, you ask the really hard questions that me and no one really can answer. Can we have a round of applause for Konrad joining us here tonight? Now, I'm not kidding. I've known Konrad for a little while. He makes great content. If you're not following him on social media, you're mad. Although every time you watch him, you'll get mad. So
I'll depress you in 1 minute and 29 seconds or less.
Takes me ages to depress people. He can do it really, really fast. But I'm not kidding. So we've known each other for a while. We help each other out a bit, but we have not workshopped this at all tonight, have we, Konrad?
Well, you're the guy with the numbers, facts, figures, and information,
Some
and
of them.
I'm the sieve that just simplifies it, dumbs it down so that I can understand it,
Yeah.
and then maybe some other punters can understand it.
Exactly. So I have no really strong view on how we're going to run tonight, but I guess I just know what we're going to talk about. I just don't know quite how, because there's so much to fit in. But there's a lot of funny stuff. There's a lot of sad-making stuff. There's a little bit of sick-making stuff. And also we're talking about the growth of an industry that is actually going to, let's face it, if we keep this up, cook the planet beyond safe and habitable temperatures. But it's a democracy, and there's an election coming up. And again, you're not alone in thinking we need to talk about this. So Konrad, why don't I ask you a weird question to get started? Why aren't you at school teaching? What are you making videos about the gas industry before I hook into some ridiculous things about them?
Oh, well, the honest answer is because I lost my job. Because
that was awkward.
because I started making these Instagram reels when I was a casual teacher. And then apparently parents complained. So I don't know if Gina Reinhart's children go to the school that I taught at, because it wasn't terribly partisan. It was just I was always talking, and maybe, you punters here on a Monday night talking politics, oh, bloody hell, yeah, it's sick, let's go talk about politics. Maybe you're similar to me when you're talking about politics to somebody else and you see their eyes glaze over. And that's kind of how I felt a lot when you're talking to people, all my friends, and then they give me that patronising, oh, I can tell you're really passionate about that. It's just so patronising. And so in the end, I did what every person does to stay sane. I turned to social media and I thought, well, I actually saw the Australia Institute's research on the gas, and the scam levels just keep levelling up with outrage. And the very first one I made was about Qatar. At the time, Australia was the world leading exporter in gas. And I saw Richard saying, oh, we export way more gas than they do, and they get 20x the revenue. And so I just thought, this is absolutely ridiculous. I can't be the only one to care about this. And the general perception in the public is Aussies don't care, we're too laissez-faire. Yeah, she'll be right, mate, she'll be right, who cares? Politicians get away with everything. But I put out that Instagram reel, and within a week it hits 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, just Australians, like big numbers for a small country like that. And I realised in that moment that Aussies do care about politics. They've just switched off from what has become known as politics, this beauty pageant rubbish that mean nothing, that aren't applicable, that aren't going to change things. And this issue of big gas taking the piss, which we've been hammering ever since, is the thing that actually, on one level, it's a scam and that's not fair, but on the other real level is other lucky countries are absolutely not doing it tough. In fact, they're doing the opposite of tough. They're absolutely killing it. And I think that message Aussies can get around. We know we ought to be rich. We keep being told we've got every mineral under the sun. Gosh darn, how lucky are we? But why can't I turn on my heater last winter? Because I bloody didn't. I'll tell you I didn't. Because one winter I turned on my gas heater and I never did it again. So
you learned that lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, I didn't know that was the first video you made, but that's good. Keep up the good work. Look, I guess, for me, the most surprising thing as an economist in Australia is, as you said, Konrad, like everyone sort of thinks this is boring. And fair enough, budget's tomorrow night. And put up your hand if you're really excited about that. Yeah, I see one hand, 2, 3 at the back. Now, that's fine. You laugh. But here's the thing. Every year when we have the federal budget, what we hear is whoever the government of the day is, the Labor government at the moment, the Treasurer stands up, and here's what tomorrow night's about. Tomorrow night is about who gets the $800 billion we're going to spend.
Because we're going to spend it.
We're going to spend it. Right? We
gave them the money.
Yeah.
So give it back.
Right? Your taxes and other people's taxes, we collect them up every year, and every year the federal government spends $800 billion on your health system, your education system, your transport system, your defence system. And, I mean, how boring is hearing who's going to get the $800 billion? Isn't there
put it like that.
isn't there some sport on? Isn't there an old repeat? Can't I binge something? Because who would care who gets the 800 billion? We've been trained to think that politics is boring. And when it's done in the way Konrad was describing before, the sort of beauty pageant, you know, who do you like the most, or the horse race, who's in front with the two-party preferred, right? That's boring, but it's not boring to ask questions like, how come we live in the world's third largest fossil fuel exporting country at a time where the world price of the things we export is at record highs, and we can't afford to spend money on helping women fleeing domestic violence? How come we can't afford to do that? Oh, I don't know, that's boring. That sounds like politics. How come we can't afford to invest more in our health system or education system? How come there's malnutrition in Australia in our aged care homes? And I don't mean one or two people. I mean, we had a Royal Commission and they went, you know, there's a lot of malnutrition in your aged care homes. Yeah, I know, but where would the money come from to fix that? I don't know. Aren't these boring questions? Boring. Budgets are so boring. Politics is so boring. Who gets the 800 billion? So, unfortunately, you know, we've been trained to believe that, I don't know, other people worry about that stuff, or, yeah, I love your passion, Konrad. I love your passion.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, my sister's here tonight, and some of my family. I think I might have been a bit passionate at points, and we caught up with my octogenarian aunt and uncle. I think I got a bit passionate last night. Got a bit passionate, yeah. Anyway, we'll get there. So yeah, sadly, we live in a country where we've been trained to think that it's boring to ask questions like the ones that we're here to talk about tonight. And just to be clear, there's nothing, I mean this seriously, obviously, there's nothing funny about the fact that we're a rich country that can't afford to help women fleeing domestic violence. There's nothing funny about the fact that we're a rich country that knows there's people in aged care homes suffering malnutrition. There's nothing funny about that at all. But at the same time, there is nothing stopping us from fixing that. There's nothing stopping us from fixing that beyond the belief that it can't be fixed, can't be done. So, Konrad, you're talking to lots of people all the time. You make great videos highlighting. We'll get to some facts and figures, but you talk to people all the time about, you know, how... And if you haven't seen Konrad's videos, like the ones where you get the pretend Americans and the pretend Norwegians to laugh at Australians for being a bit stupid, which wouldn't happen, of course. No one else in the world's looking at us going, can you believe they give us the gas for free? How come? Like, what's the barrier? What's holding other people back? Like, this is a great audience. Thank you for coming. I mean it. But most people aren't here. Most people are thinking, oh, it can't be fixed. So what's the barrier?
Yeah, I think it's that story of what politics has become. Like, I think, one, the layers of what politics has become, it's the more boring they can make it, the more depressing they can make it, and the more ability to shut down what you think is possible, like you're saying, it kills everyone's political imagination, and then the hill seems just too big to climb. And I think when it comes back to what we're talking about tonight, which is we keep being told, like the amount of random Aussie bloke punters that work in the mines that come up to me and say, I bloody knew it, mate. I'm like, yeah, you knew it. You're not dumb. I knew it. I'm not dumb. We're all getting scammed, and I just told you how. And then I painted the only possible scenario in a little Instagram skit of what would Norway react like when we tell them, oh yeah, we give them a gas for free. Oh, really? Like, what do you get for it? I'm sure they pay taxes. Oh, no, they don't. Oh, well, I'm sure you get lots of jobs out of it. Jobs? No, I just don't think we get those either. And so when it all comes back to, we're now feeling the consequences, and maybe that's like also part of why it's gaining so much traction, is we're feeling the tangible consequences, whether it's your grandparents in aged care home, whether it's your kid in childcare that's now probably got to have a Royal Commission and whatever's coming out in neglect of profit-driven childcare. We're feeling the impacts of being told we're rich the whole time, and looking at what we have and what we understand and we have nothing. And I think that we're feeling that so much that when politicians tell us we can't afford it, we say, well, why not? And now we just know too much.
So what do you reckon the biggest myths are that kind of are holding people back? Like what are the ideas or the faith? What are the beliefs that they've got that sort of stand in the way of them just expressing that outrage?
I think it's one big one is that they're all the same, and that whatever you do, nothing will change. I think that's a really. It's a big one when people go to the polls and they vote, and thankfully we have preferential voting and you can vote, and then year after year, election after election, they vote, and they vote for change. They go, oh, we've got a new Prime Minister now. He's part of a new party. He said so many good things. And then 3 years later, we find ourselves feeling, and that's the key here, feeling like we're in the same spot, and we just feel like we're running in circles.
Well, let's bust some myths one at a time. So I think you're right. I think in Australia, a lot of people are like, yeah, but they're all the same. You can't make a difference. Doesn't matter who you vote for. I'm sure you've all got a brother-in-law who feels that way. And I know you don't feel that way, but maybe even the person sitting next to you feels that way. Like I'm not. We'll see about them later tonight. But it's interesting. Like at the moment, and I mean this literally. It sounds flippant, but I mean it literally. It would be very hard to live in America today and believe that who you vote for doesn't matter. No, I mean that, right? It's pretty extreme. But, and, they've got, optional voting in the US. Only about half of Americans voted. Only about half of Americans voted. 26 or so % voted for Trump, 24% voted for Harris, and about 50% voted for no one. Because optional, it's not compulsory voting. So in Australia, if we had optional voting, I don't know what percentage of people would vote. I think a lot of people wouldn't vote because they actually believe that they're all the same. But I hate to drop a heavy truth bomb on you early in the night, but if you actually think all politicians are the same, you've just said democracy is a waste of time and doesn't work. You can't have a democracy without politicians. And if you actually believe all politicians are the same, you've just said, well, democracy doesn't really matter then. Well, Putin agrees. No, I'm not kidding. There's plenty of people in the world who agree, and one of them may well now be the president in the United States. But when you hear yourself saying they're all the same, when you act as if they're all the same, you've really given away one of the most amazing rights that's ever existed in the history of recorded civilization, the right to peacefully kind of change leaders from time to time. And you know what? None of them are perfect. None of them are perfect. But when you actually believe that it literally doesn't matter, you get what we get in America, with half of Americans thinking Trump isn't so bad that I can be asked going to vote. And I don't think that's where we are in Australia today. But if people keep believing that they're all the same, look, if you're in a town and there's only 2 cafes and they're both a bit crap, well, you still go get your coffee at the better one, don't you?
So why have we ended up on this treadmill? Let's say with this issue, with gas, because we've had multiple governments come in since the gas industry birthed itself into existence, taking most of the gas for free, not paying tax. Why does it feel like, even though we do have preferential voting, the best part about our democracy is that the people that don't give a shit, they have to vote? Because that makes the politicians start talking to the person that doesn't care, whereas in America, the person that doesn't care is not going to vote. So they talk to the guys on the extreme, and we see where that ends. So why does it feel like we're on that treadmill with these bludgers have been paying nothing across administrations? What's going on?
That's a great question. And, I'm a big fan of... we don't have compulsory voting, by the way. We have compulsory attendance at a polling place. You can show up and write, they're all shit, and stick it in the ballot box and...
Or draw a picture of your choice.
Right? The law does not require you to cast a valid vote. The law says, how about once every 3 years you spend half an hour participating in our democracy? It's far cheaper than tax, right? We ask that of you. And you can show up and say, yes, you can draw whichever genitalia you think best captures your mood. But we don't have compulsory voting. In the US, they don't have compulsory attendance at a polling place. And as you said, most people don't vote. So in America, the biggest task for the Republicans and Democrats is getting people out to vote, right? Making people feel like voting, right? The Democrats need to encourage the Democrat voters to show up and vote. The Republicans need to encourage the Republican voters to get out and vote. And about 10 million Democrats didn't show up to vote for Harris. That's why Trump won. Registered Democrats were happy to stay at home rather than vote for Harris. So what happens in America, the job is to G up your base, to make people angry, right? To really make your voters terrified of what the other people will do. So that's why you have so much division in American politics. It's a motivational strategy. Whereas here in Australia, with compulsory attendance at a polling place, it's the people who care the least who decide the most, right? It's the undecided voters. It is the so-called swinging voters, the people who are like, nah, I don't really care yet. We make them show up, and most of them do vote. They don't draw the dick pics, right? And their last-minute choices, that's what actually swings elections. And that's a good thing, I think, because we're forcing everyone to participate. And sure, some of them are low information voters, but I know some people that watch Sky News every night and call themselves high information voters. But it's a democracy, right? Their vote is just as valid as anyone else's. So, yeah, I think Australia has this unique system of compulsory attendance at a polling place with preferential voting. And a lot of people don't understand preferential voting, but you're alone in the booth, you've got your pencil, you're in charge of your preferences. And if you put a number 1 next to the person you like most, a number 2 next to the second, 3, 4, 5, the most important thing is who you put last. Right? That's the important thing. Who do you put last? And you're in charge of that. And yeah, the Australian voting system works quite well for all those reasons. But you put your finger on it. The people who care the least decide the most, those swinging voters.
But with such a great system, there seems to be a better approach to getting the policy outcomes corporations want. And they seem to have found some way of circumventing this great system we have.
Oh, yeah, I left that bit out of your question. Yeah. Sorry. No, and that's the really clever part, right? Because if democracy is as much a feat of imagination as it is of anything else, and if no one can imagine that it could be different, if no one believes that another party would make things significantly different, then they won't be significantly different. And different countries have different imaginations about different things. If you showed up in the US and went, hey, you know, having machine guns is dangerous, I reckon you guys should, I don't know, not have machine guns. Like everyone in America is going to go, that's crazy. I literally can't imagine that a country without machine guns exists. I literally can't imagine someone going to the ballot box saying, vote for me and we won't all have machine guns. Right? So in America, they literally can't imagine a country where maybe kids don't get shot in a school at least once a week, often once a day. They can't imagine that, so they won't fix it. And in Australia, we've been trained to believe that the gas industry is so powerful. It's so powerful. No government could make them pay tax.
How do they make us believe that?
Well, they've done it over a long period of time. And I think the reason that people are here tonight, the reason it feels more frustrating now is that they didn't used to take as much gas and they actually used to pay more tax than they used to. So it's kind of snuck up on us. And it's kind of like now we're at this point where literally the climate scientists are saying, you really better stop. The economists are saying, you know, they're not paying any tax. And the gas industry are like,
because that's the biggest rub for me, is that my audience mostly blokes. And if you want to know how to talk to blokes, just talk numbers. There's, for some reason, it's like, hey, you know, it's pretty bad for the environment, you know. You might not have like some forests when your kids are at, you know, hey, you're not getting any money for this damage. Oh, hang on, how much is that damage worth? Because I'm sure there's a number. I'm sure there's a number that's high enough where people go, you know what, it's pretty bad for the environment, but at least we can spend some money on some aged care homes and things like that. And that's the thing that always gets me the whole time, is that we're the ones picking up the tab for the holes they drill in the ground, for the wells that they cap that then apparently are leaking, that all the, water tables that potentially may or may not be contaminated by all the things that they do, we kind of pick up that tab. And the question is always like, what do we get for it, right? You're an economist. It's always like, well, what's the trade-off? And it's always nothing.
Yeah. All right. So he's begging me to give you some numbers. So
Give me the numbers. Show me the graphs.
we've got graphs. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's start there. So Australia, as I said, third largest fossil fuel exporter in the world. We were the largest exporter of LNG until a couple of years ago. LNG, liquefied natural gas. The big bubbly boats, right? That's gas that's been liquefied to get put on those boats and shipped overseas. And in recent times, the US and Qatar have entered the LNG industry, but we're still one of the biggest in the world. So let me explain to you just how dumb Australia is when it comes to the resources industry. So you've heard of royalties, right? A royalty is a payment that a resource company makes to a government for the resources that sit under the ground.
I've heard it's a tax.
It is a tax in some way. It's a kind of revenue, but why is it called a royalty? Because it's a payment to the crown. All right, this idea predates democracy. Okay, so you're paying the crown for the right to extract a resource.
And they're meant to be managing it on our behalf.
Well, they were managing it on the king's behalf once upon a time. But yeah, since democracy, we still, we have the crown prosecutor. We still talk about the crown. A royalty is a payment to the government for a resource that's taken up. And, to be clear, in the Hunter, every coal mine pays a royalty for coal. In Australia, every gold mine pays a royalty for gold. We can haggle about whether it's enough or not, but there aren't any coal mines that are paying no royalties in New South Wales. And there aren't any gold mines that aren't paying any royalties. In Australia, more than half of the gas we export, 56% of the gas we export, was given away royalty-free. Not a cent. Why? Because the people we elect, the person that's sitting next to you elected, I told you we'd find you, all right? Someone else voted year after year for parties that thought that was fine. And not enough voters have got the shits about that yet. So next time people tell you Australians aren't a generous people that don't care about foreigners, oh, no. We love Chevron. We love Impex. We love British Petroleum. We are so generous, we give them billions of dollars of gas for free. Not a cent. Now, that's just the first bit of the problem. So here you go. Would you like some gas? Yeah, sure. In addition to giving them free gas, we have something called the Petroleum Resource Rent Tax, the PRRT. And the Petroleum Resource Rent Tax was set up quite some time ago, mainly as a sort of extra tax on the oil industry. Australia didn't used to export much gas. It used to mainly be oil, mainly out of the Bass Strait down in south of Victoria. Anyway, the Petroleum Resource Rent Tax is this super-duper tax that's designed to be our special tax on the fossil fuel industry to make sure we get our fair share of revenue. This is, again, in addition to the royalties. In Australia last year, the Commonwealth Government collected more revenue from kids repaying their HECS than we got from our Petroleum Resource Rent Tax.
You're welcome.
So the idea that the gas industry are like the backbone of the economy and propping up our budget and paying for all our schools and hospitals, no, kids are paying their HECS are making a bigger contribution. Now, it gets worse because I said 56% of the gas royalty-free. There are major gas projects in Australia that have told their shareholders we expect to pay zero petroleum resource rent tax over the life of our project. And this is in top secret documents called their annual report. All right? And by the way, lying to your shareholders gets you put in jail. So just to be clear, the companies that are getting gas for free, no royalties, are telling their shareholders, don't worry, we don't expect to ever pay a cent in petroleum resource rent tax. And then you've got companies like Chevron, whose accountants are so good, they haven't even paid any company tax. They don't even pay the normal company tax. Right? That's it. That's all I got. No, it's not. And we subsidise them. We subsidise them. We give them cash. So up in Darwin, there's a project called the Middle Arm Processing Hub, and this government, straight after the last election, announced $1.5 billion cash to help a new gas processing plant in Darwin. Remember how we can't afford to help the women fleeing domestic violence? Remember how we can't afford to help the people in the aged care? Remember all the things you've been told that we can't afford to do? You all remember the big promise at the last election where Albo said, if elected, I'll give $1.5 billion to the Middle Arm Gas Hub. You remember that, don't you? No. You know what? There wasn't a single speech about it. There wasn't a single press release about it.
It's almost like they're not proud of it.
It's almost as if they just went to the gas industry beforehand and went, it'll be right, mate, but let's just keep this. So you know how in an election they brag, look at all the money we're spending, look at all the money right? The fact that they didn't make a single speech about it is proof of their shame. It's proof they know you didn't want it, but they went and they made that promise. So there you go. We're a generous country. We're helpful. We like to help plucky little startups like Chevron. But yeah, that's who we are. And by the way, we are one of the richest countries in the world. We could just be so much richer. Well, let me put it this way. In Norway, they tax the bejesus out of their oil and gas industry, and they give their kids free university education. In Australia, we subsidise the fossil fuel industry and charge our kids a fortune to go to uni. That's why budgets matter. That's why democracy matters. That's why when you say they're all the same, that's why it doesn't change. That's how I answered your question, right?
Yes.
No, because we just believe you can't change it. And if we believe we can't change it, just like the Americans can't imagine no machine guns, we won't change it. So it's not until the person sitting next to you gets really fired up and does something finally that anything will happen.
So then on to that point, we're getting scammed a lot by a lot of different foreign players. And the part that stings the most is that our resources get converted into cash, and then that cash just goes to a US or a Japanese-owned cartel somewhere offshore, and it doesn't cycle back into our economy. It doesn't give us anything after that. Yeah. So beyond that point, then, what's the solution, and then what's our role in bringing this to the attention of politicians where they actually listen to us and not the lobbyists that seem to have far too cozy connections with the politicians? Like when I was doing just random YouTube videos on this, the amount of politicians that once you just Google like the PRRT, the mining minister for the Labor Party and the Liberal Party and every minister sort of after that, guess where they're working right now? Conspiracy or coincidence? You tell me. I would never call it corruption because that would be, whoa, it's legal, it's allowed. But how is it that these corporations can get the sickest deal in Australian history, and the bloke that wrote the rules or oversaw the rules or was handy in the government when the rules went through somehow ends up as the head of the lobby, of the oil and gas lobby to this very day? Conspiracy or coincidence? You tell me.
Well, I think we should ask them. Hands up for coincidence. Hands up for conspiracy. Yeah. Well, that's our democracy, right? And if we don't believe we can change it, we won't. So, yeah, look, it's I mean, there's no simple solutions to this in terms of, what do we do tomorrow that will fix it? But until we all agree it's a problem, we're not actually going to agree that it even warrants a solution. And, we live in a country that has done this for so long. Fish can't taste the water they swim in. Australians just think it's normal that we give gas away for free. Japan exports gas. Japan is a major exporter of gas. Do you know how much gas they have in Japan? None.
Where are they getting this gas from, Richard?
Japan exports more gas than Australia sells it. Japan's making a fortune out of processing gas and selling it to people, while telling Australians, you better keep giving us free gas or something bad's going to happen.
To their budget.
So, it's not an accident that we're doing this, and this sounds weird, but let's take a long run up at this. The oil and gas industry have been amongst the richest, most powerful industries in the world for over a century. Right? This is not a new game for them. And if you go look at the American history of the evolution of the oil and gas industry, you will read some ripping yarns of death and murder and mayhem. I'm not kidding. And people blowing up each other's oil wells. And if you go read the history of J.D. Rockefeller, who became the richest man in the world, it wasn't by kind of just being collegiate and friendly when it came to other people that were trying to extract oil. So the history of the oil and gas industry is violent. Literally, wars have been fought over a century about oil and gas.
This doesn't make me feel any more comfortable about this conversation.
It gets better. After World War I and World War II, literally countries drew lines on maps to divvy up oil wells between parts of the Middle East. So the English got what they want, the American... Right, so to suggest that the oil industry has been engaged with government closely for a little while successfully is the understatement of the century.
But it is also so insulting. Because have you seen how much money they donate to our politicians?
It's pathetic.
It's like 40 grand.
It's nothing.
I can't afford a house, but maybe I can buy myself a politician.
At those prices. So, no, but this is kind of the point, that these companies have been influencing governments in the US, in the UK, in France, in Australia, in Africa, forever. And if I told you that, and this, I hate to say it, it's going to sound racist. I don't mean it to. I'm just going to talk about Australia, not me. If an Australian newspaper reported that some politicians in Papua New Guinea had signed a sweetheart deal so that a foreign oil company got a lot of money and the local Papua New Guineans got nothing, we'd all go, checks out. Or if you read that Nigeria was one of the richest countries in the world with enormous oil resources and there's lots of poor people in Nigeria, but, the politicians seem, it checks out. You say in Australia, we're the third largest fossil fuel exporter in the world. The oil industry is not paying any tax. We subsidise it. What's your point? Right? We don't see it. We don't see it. And do we really think that the Northern Territory Energy Minister up against Chevron's best is anything like a level playing field in a negotiation?
Well, didn't the previous minister just cop a sweet job at Tamboran after leaving office?
Coincidence or conspiracy? So, we could go all night on the who, but Ian Macfarlane, former resources minister, works for the oil and gas industry. Martin Ferguson, former resource minister.
The list is exhaustive and you will... Yeah, it goes on and on.
But again, if I said it was Papua New Guinea, you'd shrug and you'd get it. If I said it was Nigeria, you'd shrug and you'd get it. And I say it's Australia and I can't do anything about that.
But we can't use that word corrupt. Like in our media sphere at the moment, you will get sued or media outlets will be pursued by powerful individuals if I was to impugn that these politicians may have engaged in some kind of quid pro quo for a cushy job.
Yeah, or worse, they just did it because they liked hanging out with rich, powerful people.
That's even worse.
Now, we know that, you know, who's the former New South Wales Resources Minister who's still in jail for giving away a coal sweetheart deal? Ian McDonald, right. So there you go. We can talk about Ian McDonald because truth is a defence, and he's in jail. So again, if it happened in another country, we'd get it. It happens in Australia, or maybe there's something more to it. But the reason I'm telling you all this, hopefully the reason we're all here, is because we're sick of it. Who's sick of it? All right. Well, we can fix it, if we want to, but we won't fix it with one particular law getting changed, right? What we actually have to do, democracy thrives on high expectations, right? We actually have to expect and demand more. And, you know, to be clear, credit where credit's due, the former Queensland Premier, Stephen Miles, he agreed with everything we're saying tonight. He jacked up coal royalties. The coal industry got the shits. The Japanese ambassador got the shits. The media got the shits.
And we got billions more dollars.
And Queensland has got more public housing. Queensland has got 50% public transport.
I was just on it. It's fantastic.
All right. So it's not like we can't do it. You believing, or that person sitting next to you believing that we can't do it, is the biggest barrier. Stephen Miles did it. And you know what? And, you know, he lost the last election. But the reason, he lost the last election and it was actually close. It was supposed to be a walkover. It was supposed to be a bloodbath.
Well, that's the story that it seems to be that filters into our consciousness that says if you touch these resources kingpins, you need to be quiet, Richard. Take what you're given, because it could get worse.
Could get worse.
Like that below poverty welfare safety net we've got, it could be lower. So don't you dare push this industry, because they will push back. And look at Richard Miles.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephen Miles. But Stephen Miles inherited a government that was, you know, way behind in the polls, and he kind of thought, I got nothing to lose. So because he thought he had nothing to do, he thought, fuck, what if I did something popular? No, I'm not kidding.
Crazy idea to get elected.
Like, this crazy idea. What if I pissed off people who can't vote, shareholders in foreign companies, and collected more tax and spent more money on people who can vote? And, you know, it went from this is going to be a disaster to holy hell, he nearly won. So, again, the reason I'm saying this is because we can do it. And not only did Stephen Miles do it, the new Liberal Premier hasn't ripped it up. It's still there. Indeed, he promised to not rip it up during the state election because actually people liked it. And
they've still got 50 cent public transport
and they've
fares.
still got 50 cent, right. So
it's really hard to remove things that people like. It's hard to get things that people like.
Yep.
But once we have them, no one's wanting to gut Medicare quickly. Yeah. Right? People know that
we just put the leeches on and bleed it out. Yeah.
If you don't notice. But as soon as we start noticing, all of a sudden, both parties, you want $9 billion for Medicare? Oh, we'll give you $9 billion. Fantastic. We both agree. You could pass it now. No, next election.
Absolutely. And think about what's happened in this term of office federally. Anthony Albanese went to the 2022 election supporting the Stage 3 tax cuts. Stage 3 tax cuts would have given $9,000 a year tax cut to blokes earning over $200,000 and not a cent to people, brackets mainly women, earning less than 50. Went to the last election. Now, Scott Morrison cooked it up, but Albo wanted to be small target and bipartisan. I don't want to have a fight about tax because Bill Shorten tried that and he lost, so we'll never have a fight about tax again. So Albo went to the 2022 election supporting the idea of giving a $9,000 a year tax cut to people earning over 200 grand, brackets mainly blokes, and nothing to people earning less than 50 grand, brackets mainly women. And for 2 years, he was like, no, I know it's not the best thing in the world, but I promised to do it. I've got to keep my promises. I promised to do it. And then at the beginning of last year, in the middle of a cost of living crisis with, you know, energy prices going through the roof, and after 2 years of us nagging him, true story, they went, actually, maybe we should change the Stage 3 tax cuts. And they did. And 2 days later, the Liberals went, good call. Good call. No, because
it would have been really hard for them to argue. Listen, I need a tax cut, and you don't. Yeah. And it's good for you.
Yeah, Peter Dutton knew he could not go to the election saying high-income politicians like him need a $9,000 pay cut, a tax cut, and women earning below 50 grand, they've had it too good for too long. No, but until Albo said he'd change it, everyone thought it was impossible. Right? This is the point. That right up until he did it, it was ridiculous and never going to happen. And then a day after he did it, it was inevitable. And the Libs were like, fair call, mate. Yeah, no, good idea. Those people earning below 50 need it. So this is the point that, it's not going to happen, I don't think, in the next month. I don't think in the lead up to this election, you'll hear either major party come out and say, I got an idea. Let's tax the bejesus out of gas and make childcare free and make university free. There's no reason one of them couldn't, but I promise the day after one of them does, the other one will go, yeah, fair call, mate. No, but that's the problem, right? That's the power, is as long as everyone believes no one else is going to do it, then it won't happen. And there's a bit of magic to that. There's a bit of luck to that. There's a bit of leadership to that. There's a bit of bravery to that. There's a lot of hard campaign working to that. But again, the day before Albo did it, it was impossible. And the day after he did it, it was just, everyone would do that. Yeah, good call, mate. So change is possible. The most dangerous thing in a democracy is when we believe that if the two major parties say it's a dumb idea, it can't happen. And as long as we keep falling for that, well, nothing will change.
And it also seems to be a part of focusing on the right thing and talking about the right stuff. Because it sounds like one tactic that these bludgers have and politicians kind of have to distract you from those sweet deals that can continue, and they don't want to rock the boat. They're not going to have the big gas cartels running ads against them in the next election if they just leave this thing alone. But having people focused on this sort of stuff, the thing that actually everyone does agree on, because guess what? We're all on the same team because we own those resources, and the people that we put in charge to get a good deal for us turned around and went, job where? Sick. That sounds good. So it sounds like you're saying if we believe that it's possible, it is possible because it's been done before. It's been done in other countries, but it also has been done with a different resource in this country. And it sounds really, you're going to break into song. If only we just believe. There's a theme song in this.
You just need to clap for Tinkerbell. No, it kind of is. It's partly a feat of imagination. Like that's sort of how democracy works. And once something's inevitable, it's inevitable. But if it's impossible, it's impossible. Jackie Lambie was doing a press conference today with David Pocock. So, Jackie Lambie, the quiet, unassuming, very progressive from Tasmania. I really like Jackie. We disagree on plenty of things, but we agree on plenty of things. And she was just raging away today about this, saying, and I don't want to do a Jackie impersonation because, no, I'm bad at it. I don't mean to mock her, but you can imagine, just picture Jackie in full flight, with her trademark energy saying, just put Australians first. Why don't we get the cheap gas? Yeah, exactly, right. So this isn't a left-right thing, right? That's the trap. That's the trap, is to kind of fall into the trap of the culture war.
Keep us fighting about the fringe issues that don't matter, that don't have a real tangible impact on anyone's real life, as long as you don't focus on the thing that could change it forever.
Yeah. So there's Jackie Lambie and David Pocock standing next to each other, and I'm choosing my words carefully here, I mean it, being populist nationalists. Now, historically, and this is a weird tangent in this talk about gas, but for 20 years in Australia, nationalism has mainly been beating up on refugees. All right? And the way you show you put Australia first is by having strong borders and beating up vulnerable people at the border. Yay! I'm a strong nationalist. Well, Trump's just changed all that. Right? And the world environment just got a hell of a lot messier. And look in Canada at the moment. Look at the progressive nationalism in Canada. Right, which is a big FU to Donald Trump and take your Jim Beam bourbon and stick it. And so the idea that nationalism, like putting your country first, means racism, no, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to at all. And the idea that in an environment where the US is saying, make America great, well, our politicians have to protect Australia. We can't just sit back and say, make Japan great or make the US great and a rising tide will lift all boats. No, exactly. It's ridiculous. So in Australia today, with Trump saying, stuff you all, I'm putting America first, why wouldn't Jackie Lambie say, let's stop giving cheap gas to foreigners? And why wouldn't David Pocock or the Greens or Labor stand up right next to her and say the same thing? This is popular. This is popular. It's not left. It's not right. It's just not stupid.
And I see that.
Yeah, clap. Yeah. They couldn't decide, could they?
And I see that in the comment sections of my posts every single day. I see people who would be a One Nation voter, who would be a Trump voter, who are typing Doge, Elon Musk, save us here in Australia in the comments. I kid you not. Because the thing that they're wanting is to be looked after by their politicians. And I think the left and right teams that we keep getting handed, yes, we will disagree on stuff. Of course we bloody will. We have 150 elections or thereabouts every year voting for your individual member. And if I don't disagree with someone in richo Sydney suburb Mossman somewhere, then there's something wrong with, where we're positioned. People are different in different things. And if we're voting for our best interest, the catch is all of our interests are actually close to 70 to 80% aligned, because guess what? We live in the same damn country. We own the same damn resources, and we care about the same stuff. You want a house? Cool. So do I. And I think that is I think what I'm teaching myself is a few things just with the audience engagement and the people I meet is, one, people care about this stuff. They care about politics. And people agree way more than they disagree, and they're sick of the narratives that are pushed on us that is called politics. That's why everyone's politically disengaged, because it's a smart thing to do, to disengage from a toxic, dumb version of politics that doesn't have any bearing on your life. That's the smart thing to do. We're actually not disengaged, and I think the amount of people here show that we are engaged when we're talking about the things that matter. So I think with the person next to you, you might disagree, but there's way more that we agree on. And I think an issue like this is something that we definitely do agree on. So it makes no sense why our politicians in Parliament can't sit down, Jackie Lambie, David Pocock, who's the real conservative bloke from Queensland, Senator?
Bob Katter, maybe?
Probably Bob Katter. All these people.
Ralph Babbitt?
Ralph Babbitt? I don't know. But I did have a conversation with, they're not the ones I'm thinking of.
Matt Canavan?
Not Matt Canavan. No.
Long list of crazy Queensland right-wingers coming up. Malcolm Roberts.
Not Malcolm Roberts, but he looks like Malcolm Roberts and sound like... Thank you. Yes, that's the pop quiz. Thanks for joining quiz night. Jared Rennick. I had a conversation with Jared Rennick, and for 45 minutes, all we did was agree on taxing multinational tax corporations. All we did is agree on taxing. He's telling me all the detailed loopholes, which you'd love that conversation. It got a bit above my pay grade. I'm like, oh yeah, cool numbers and graphs. But for that long, we agreed on that. And that's the kind of parliament that is growing at the moment, of people going, yep, we're going to fight and disagree on this stuff, but we're going to get the stuff done, and it's not that hard, and we can actually agree. And it's time to have politicians in there that are ready to do that kind of work.
Well, how about we vote for Konrad?
I decline.
Now, I'm not wearing a watch, and Dee's kind of tapping at hers. How are we going for time, Dee?
It's only a minute past 7.
It's only a minute past 7. All right, well, we're going to wrap up in a minute. But typically when I come to events, and by the way, I love coming to events like this. I love working at the Australian Institute. I love that we can sort of do good research and put on events like this. It really cheers me up in all sorts of ways. But one of the most common things that I hear when I come to an event like this, people come up to me afterwards and say, oh, that was great, Richard. It was great fun. And, I hate the way you made me feel sad and then happy and then sad and then happy again. It's like, yeah, it was an accident. One of the most common things people say is, oh, that's great, but you're preaching to the converted. You're preaching to the converted. Why are you here talking to us when we all agree? You should be preaching, can't preach to the converted. You know what the Catholic Church does every Sunday? It's the best organising strategy in history. And we've kind of been trained to think that hanging out with people who share our values and share our concerns and want something better is somehow a waste of time. It's not a waste of time. It is absolutely crucial. It is absolutely crucial in a democracy for you and the person sitting next to you to hang out with other people who share your values and people who don't, right? It is so important in a democracy that we can have a conversation like this and that you guys can go and have other... That's what it's actually all about. And that version of politics isn't boring. But we need people to understand that actually this is part of it, you know, and politics isn't something done by them and politics isn't something done to us, that in a democracy, actually participating in it is really important. So can you give the person sitting next to you a round of applause for coming? And thank you so much for coming. Thank you for caring. Thank you for wanting to make your country a better place. It's not naive. It's not utopian. It's not impossible. Other countries have done some things better than us. We've done some things better than other countries. I don't hate Australia. I love it here. I just want to make it better. And it's not utopian to think we can change things. In fact, it's dystopian to think we can't. So thank you for coming, and how about a round of applause for Konrad? Thank you.
Thanks for watching. We love that we can make these videos free to watch, but they're not free to make. It's thanks to our generous supporters that we can keep making research and content that changes minds. So, if you like what we do, please consider giving to the Australia Institute so we can keep doing it. Visit our website australiainstitute.org.au and click the donate button to see how your support can help fund high quality research that matters.